I feel really privileged to have been allowed to hear Dr. Jones tonight. I've never heard her speak. Um, and so now I have to follow you around and make sure I hear you again because it's not only it's riveting, but it's also a very easy, much easier lesson to digest. When Rodney asked me to talk here tonight, I said, "Sure, Rodney. What do you want me to talk about?" And he says, "Just be yourself." And I said, "Well, that could be really dangerous." Uh, but on the other hand, I could talk about my clients, people that live right here in this community. There's one I'm particularly reminded of tonight, and they call him Big Joe. And Joe is overweight. He's very obese. And I think sometimes people driving by Joe look at him sitting on a bus stop and they think he's doing his own lot of life. But Joe uh, uh, couldn't make his child support payments, and so his car was taken from him. So when his car was taken from him, he lost his job. And when Joe lost his job, he didn't have any way to get around, and his diabetes got worse. And the only places he had to eat were right around here because he didn't go anywhere, and the only places to eat around here are not healthy at all. So he's a part of the system of the institutional racism that has created a community out here that is constantly asking folks for help and have a community that gets their fair share of the largesse that government has to offer. But in order, I think, to understand how that could possibly work in the future, is to understand that that things you talked about for a brief time. Probably one of the few things up here I'm probably very confident with this time. White privilege. I've never been a victim of racism. I've never been afraid when a cop pulled me over. And I get up every day and I have a lot of tools that are available for me. And the biggest problem with white privilege is that we, white people, have been told all our lives in every way not to recognize it. Because white is normal. It's normal. What's your experience? And Greg is normal. And from the time you were a little kid, you were told you could do anything you wanted. And I could. There is it's important for us to understand that white privilege is based on race. Sure, there are class struggles based on economics. That's all true. And it's not to say that a lot of white people have not been in unfair situations and had troubles and been poor. Millions have. It just wasn't based on their race. That's the only difference. I think that for everybody, particularly for white folks, I think it's very challenging to try and understand the privileges you've had because, as I said, you've always seen them as normal. In her article, White Privilege, Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack, Peggy McIntosh, who was the first person I heard coin this phrase in 1988, described white privilege as an invisible package of unearned assets that I can count on cashing in on every single day, about which I was meant to remain completely oblivious. White privilege is like an invisible, weightless knapsack of special provisions, maps, passports, code books, visas, clothes, tools, and blank checks, all for me. Ms. McIntosh described doing an exercise that I recommend to all of you. She began to write down just daily conditions or acts or things and how they were represented by white privilege. I could turn on the TV and see people of my race widely represented on every channel. When I'm told about U.S. history or the history of civilization, I am shown in graphic detail that people of my color made it happen. I am never, ever asked to speak for all people in my racial group. Never. I can easily buy posters, postcards, picture books, greeting cards, dolls, toys, and magazines featuring people of my race. If I need to move, I am confident of renting or purchasing housing in an area that I want to live in and afford, and I can be pretty sure that my neighbors in this new location will be neutral or pleasant to me. The pressure on me, the pressure on Ms. McIntosh, all our lives to avoid recognizing this privilege is great. Because once we recognize it, see it, and acknowledge it, we can no longer blindly walk on that treadmill and claim that life is an even playing field. If racism and white privilege are true, the U.S. of A. is not such a free country. One's life is not just what one makes of it. Many doors open for certain people through no virtues of their own. And a huge part of undoing racism in this country depends on white people beginning to dialogue with each other and with friends, neighbors, co-workers of color about these privileges that they didn't deserve. We need to be able to recognize the privileges they have been taught us to be blind to and accept as normal, and to see ways in which the three levels of racism keep racism and its negative effects alive. White folks should be encouraged to take responsibility for racism, even if they were not personally involved in its creation. In doing so, we may begin to understand that we participate in racist institutions and a racist culture every single day, and that we do benefit from racism, and that we may participate and perpetuate racism even when that is not our intention. The importance of understanding white privilege is that it's time to share that privilege with the rest of the country.